6:58 a.m., October 25th, 1944. Location, off the coast of Samar Island, Philippines. The dawn was still fragile over the sea, but it could not conceal the horrifying reality unfolding. From the lookout station on the deck of the Roberts, a destroyer escort weighing only 1,645 tons, the crew saw four enormous, dark shapes tearing through the thin veil of mist to the northwest, just 15 nautical miles away. These were not merely warships, they were Japanese battleships. We must understand the situation clearly. The Roberts was a tiny tin can designed to escort convoys and hunt submarines. Her primary armament consisted of two 5-inch guns, and her crew numbered 224 men, men who had been together for only 5 months and 27 days since the ship was commissioned. They were ordinary young men from small towns across America, now facing monsters. Leading the enemy formation was the Yamato, the largest battleship ever built. She displaced 72,000 tons and carried 9 18.1-inch guns capable of firing 3,200-pound shells out to a range of 25 miles. Before the Roberts could even take aim, the Yamato could have blown her out of the water. An unthinkable confrontation. The commanding officer, Lieutenant Commander Robert Copeland, lifted the microphone of the ship's internal communication system. His voice was calm, but his words carried the weight of a death sentence. Men of the Roberts, we have made contact with a large Japanese fleet at a distance of 15 nautical miles. 4 battleships, 8 cruisers, and numerous destroyers. All are heading straight toward us. Then came the words that would pass into naval legend. This will be a fight against overwhelming odds that we cannot hope to survive, but we will inflict whatever damage we can. Put yourself in the place of those sailors. They were not supermen. They were soldiers trained to protect, not to die in vain. Yet when they heard that declaration, no one faltered. A steel resolve rose among them. The Japanese center force consisted of 23 warships with a combined displacement of 200,000 tons. Opposing them was Taffy 3, a unit of 6 escort carriers, essentially merchant hulls with flight decks attached, protected by 3 destroyers and 4 destroyer escorts. Just 7 small ships, totaling 25,000 tons. The disparity was 8-to-1 in tonnage. At that moment, Admiral Halsey's Third Fleet had steamed north, deceived into chasing a Japanese decoy force, leaving Taffy 3 alone off Samar. U.S. intelligence believed the center force had withdrawn, but they were wrong. The enemy had slipped through the San Bernardino Strait at 3 a.m. and was now closing at 30 knots. The escort carriers could make no more than 18 knots. Escape was impossible. Beyond the limits, at 7:05 a.m., Rear Admiral Clifton Sprague, commander of Taffy 3, ordered an attack. The 3 destroyers at the front turned toward the enemy, followed by the 4 destroyer escorts, with the Roberts bringing up the rear. They had only minutes before enemy battleship gunfire began to rain down on them. Below decks, Chief Engineer Lieutenant Lloyd Trowbridge listened to Copeland's announcement. He knew that Navy regulations limited the Roberts' speed to 24 knots to protect the boiler system, but 24 knots was not enough. Speed was life. Trowbridge stepped to the main control panel and began disabling every safety mechanism the Navy had installed. His crew watched in silence. They understood. They were forcing the ship beyond every design limit. At 7:23 a.m., the Roberts turned her bow directly toward the Japanese formation. Copeland ordered full speed ahead. Trowbridge's modifications drove the destroyer escort to 28 knots, 4 knots beyond her design speed. The ship shuddered violently. The steam pressure gauge crept into the red zone. No one cared. At that moment, speed meant survival. The Roberts had to punch through the enemy screen, close to torpedo range, 5,000 yards, about 2.8 miles, fire and escape. Their 3 Mark 15 torpedoes could run at 46 knots, but to reach launch range they had to pass through a wall of steel from ships capable of accurate fire at 25,000 yards. At 7:32 a.m., shells began falling around the Roberts. 8-inch rounds from the heavy cruiser Chikuma. Green dye markers erupted in the water, helping Japanese gunners correct their aim. Copeland ordered hard turns to port, then starboard, zigzagging. He was playing a deadly game of chase, forcing the enemy gunners to guess. A lethal opening blow. On the forward 5-inch gun mount, gun captain William Burton and his 10-man crew prepared themselves. They were well trained, but they had never faced battleships. Their gun could fire 15 rounds per minute. They carried a total of 608 shells, 304 per gun. If they were not careful, they would be out of ammunition in 20 minutes. At 7:38 a.m., the Roberts was still 7,000 yards from Chikuma. Too far. Copeland needed 2 more minutes to close another 2,000 yards. 2 more minutes under falling shells. A single direct hit from an 8-inch round would punch through the Roberts' thin hull and cause catastrophe. The gun shield's 3 8-inch armor was designed to stop shrapnel, not 8-inch shells. 7:40 a.m. The Roberts crossed the 5,000-yard mark, torpedo range. Copeland gave the order. Fire! 3 Mark 15 torpedoes leapt from the starboard side, leaving white wakes behind them. The Roberts immediately swung hard to port and fled at full speed, vanishing into a cloud of smoke. Lookouts aboard Chikuma spotted the torpedo tracks. The cruiser turned sharply. 2 torpedoes missed. The third passed beneath the hull without detonating. The Mark 15 had a 40% failure rate in its detonators. Although all 3 torpedoes failed, Copeland achieved something even greater than a hit. Chikuma turned away. The heavy cruiser was forced to break formation, wasting 5 precious minutes. 5 minutes the escort carriers needed to run farther south, closer to the hope of rescue. The Roberts had accomplished her central mission, disruption and delay. But now she would have to pay the price for that audacity. 7:45 a.m. The Roberts emerged from the smoke. Chikuma had completed her turn and was once again heading toward the carriers, now at a distance of 8,000 yards, too far for another torpedo attack. Copeland ordered gun captain Burton to open fire with the forward 5-inch gun. This was sheer defiance. A 5-inch gun firing at an 8-inch heavy cruiser. In theory, it was pointless. Burton and his crew did not care about theory. The gun fired. The first round fell 400 yards short. The third splashed near Chikuma's bow. The fourth hit. The 5-inch shell punched through Chikuma's superstructure and detonated inside. Smoke rose. Burton's crew entered a state of pure combat meditation. Load, ram, fire. Load, ram, fire. 15 rounds per minute. The barrel glowed with heat. In 5 minutes, Burton fired 75 shells. Damage had been done. How much was unclear, but Chikuma was still firing, still closing on the carriers. 7:52 a.m. Chikuma shifted her fire from the carriers to the smaller, more stubborn target. Roberts. 8-inch shells began falling thick and close. Shrapnel tore into the hull. Seawater flooded the forward gun mount. Burton's crew kept firing, water up to their ankles. The gun had been designed to function in all conditions, and now it was being tested in a fight for survival. At the same time, disaster was striking the sister ships. To the north, the destroyer Johnston was hit by a 14-inch shell from the battleship Congo, her bridge blown apart. The destroyer Hull was hit repeatedly and reduced to running on a single engine. But Roberts was still intact, still making 28 knots, still firing. The last shell, 8:07 a.m. Ammunition was running low. After 18 minutes of continuous fire, Burton's forward gun had only 34 shells left, barely 2 more minutes. Copeland ordered a change of target. The heavy cruiser Tone, now closing to 7,000 yards and bombarding the escort carrier Gambier Bay. Burton traversed the mount, fired, hit. The 5-inch shell struck Tone's number 2 turret, penetrating and detonating inside. The turret stopped rotating. It fell silent. With a gun never meant for the task, Burton had knocked out 1/4 of a heavy cruiser's main battery. 8:10 a.m. The forward gun of Roberts fired its final round, exhausting all 304 shells. The barrel glowed red hot. Burton's crew had pushed the weapon far beyond every Navy technical limit. Now the only hope lay with the aft gun, commanded by gunner's mate Paul Henry Carr, just 20 years old. They still had 325 shells. 8:15 a.m., Roberts' luck ran out. 3 heavy cruisers, Chikuma, Tone, and Hagaro, closed in on her. The range collapsed to 4,000 yards. The sacrifice of Paul Carr. 8:20 a.m. The first hit landed. An 8-inch shell from Chikuma punched through the port side, passed through the galley, and exited the starboard side without exploding, leaving a 3-foot hole. Seawater began flooding the lower compartments. 8:22 a.m., the second shell detonated. The blast tore through the crew's quarters, killing 6 men instantly and rupturing steam lines. Superheated steam burned 4 more sailors alive. Roberts' speed dropped. 1 boiler was lost. 8:25 a.m., Paul Carr's gun mount lost power. It had to be operated manually. The rate of fire fell from 15 rounds per minute to just 6. Carr and his crew, soaked with sweat, seawater, and steam, kept loading by hand, cranking the wheels, firing. 8:30 a.m., catastrophe. Powder ignited spontaneously from the overheated barrel. The explosion ripped the aft gun mount apart, killing 3 men and wounding 7. Paul Carr was struck by razor-sharp steel fragments from neck to groin. He collapsed, his intestines spilling out. He was dying. But Paul Carr was not finished. He looked at the ready rack. 1 shell left, the last shell aboard. He crawled toward it and clutched the 54-pound round to his chest. Blood poured from his wounds. He pointed toward the gun, trying to make Seaman Chalmer Gohan understand. "Load it! Fire! Keep fighting!" Gohan dragged Carr away from the shattered mount. The gun was destroyed, incapable of firing the final shell. Paul Carr would not accept that. He died 5 minutes later, still trying to crawl back toward his gun. Sinking with honor 8:35 a.m., Roberts was struck by a massive 14-inch shell that penetrated engine room number 2 and detonated. The blast tore a 40-foot hole in the ship. The destroyer escort was mortally wounded. Copeland ordered all surviving crew topside. The ship was sinking. 9:10 a.m., abandoned ship. 115 men were dead or missing. The remaining 109 sailors jumped into the sea. Only 1 life raft remained intact. The wounded were placed on it. The rest clung to floater nets and wreckage. 9:35 a.m. Roberts rolled hard to port. Her bow pointed skyward for the final 10 seconds. Then she plunged straight down to a depth of 3,600 feet. The deepest sunk U.S. warship lost in combat. As the 109 survivors drifted in an oil-slick sea, the battle itself turned. 9:45 a.m., Japanese Admiral Takeo Kurita ordered a retreat. His cruisers had been badly damaged by tin cans and escort aircraft. He believed he was fighting Admiral Halsey's powerful Third Fleet. He had been deceived. The sacrifice of Roberts and Taffy III created the tactical confusion that saved the entire Lady Landing. The battle off Samar was over, and Japan lost its final chance to halt the war in the Philippines. 95 survivors from Roberts drifted for 50 hours, fighting sharks and dehydration, until they were rescued by a patrol craft early on October 27th. Roberts was awarded the Presidential Unit Citation. Captain Copeland received the Navy Cross. Paul Henry Carr was posthumously awarded the Silver Star. This story is not just about a battle. It is about boundless courage, about the steel spirit of young Americans who knew they would die, yet charged straight at the enemy to protect their comrades. USS Samuel B. Roberts was not merely a destroyer escort. It became an eternal symbol of duty greater than life itself, a feat Admiral Chester Nimitz called the finest hour of the U.S. Navy. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to the channel to receive more compelling content.